Before we start, we need to tell you up front we are not a licensed financial planning, accounting or law firm. This is simply an education program which will give you factual information. We do not give any general or specific advice around finance, business, investing, options trading or anything else. That is not what this presentation does. Please see a licensed financial planner when it comes to any investment advice you need.
Hey, it's Edge Entertainment Australia, Edge Radio Australia, and we are doing The Greater Wealth, a show that we love to do. This is a fantastic way of getting some information, a bit of education about how to, basically live your life purpose. I'm going to introduce you first for the pure and simple reason you're giggling like a schoolgirl in the background. It's Travis Carter. Please tell me.
Because you just said it's education.
So
you didn't even mean to do it. That's the funniest thing about it.
And you know what? And today I even turned your mic on, and I really regret that now. And to my left, of course, we've got Derek Whittaker, mate. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. It's fun hanging out with you guys.
Oh, mate, we've got a lot to talk about today. Actually, some really interesting stuff going on. I want to get in the ball. I'm hearing that they're closing banks everywhere. What's going on there?
Yeah, it was interesting last week. The announcement came out that Bankwest was closing all of its branches on the east coast of Australia.
Wow, that's a lot of branches.
Which is a subsidiary of the Commonwealth Bank, or CBA as we call it.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So CBA bought them out years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, there was some interesting stories when they actually did. I worked with someone who was an ex-employee of that, and apparently they weren't telling the employees what the rumours were going around, and they rocked up. This is how the story goes. I don't know how accurate it is. But they rocked up, and then the CBA logo was suddenly all on their monitors at Bankwest.
Oh, wow.
That sort of stuff.
Doesn't surprise me. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when it was actually the Teachers Credit Society kind of thing, and that came and rolled into, don't get me wrong, I remember the R&I and all of that, and it kind of all rolled in together and became Bankwest, as I understand it. So, but I didn't know about the CBA thing. Jeez, I've been living under a rock.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting what the CBA have been doing, playing this. Bankwest recently announced to its business customers that it was no longer to be supporting business accounts soon. So what's going on is they the way I see it, the way I think they're doing it is they're moving all of their technology. This is significant because when you move money across, I assume they're going to be promoting, hey, go to CBA, we've rolled it out, etc., for the business accounts. Now, why is this significant? Because business accounts typically have more money than your mum and dad using everyday transactions in their accounts.
Sure.
So, and it affects how much the banks can actually lend out. So this is really interesting what they're doing. It's almost like they're changing the branding. I think their reasons are, hey, we want to pour more resources in the technology in this one brand rather than the other one and dilute it in another brand.
Gotcha.
I don't quite buy it, but yeah.
To make more of a specialist business side, or an actual brand that's more business and one that's more consumer? Or?
Obviously business customers are going to have very different needs to mum and dad investors, particularly when it comes to transferring large amounts of money and, of course, the amount of transactions. So the technology, I guess the technology you use for a business owner is very different from what for mum and dad transactions.
Sure.
So, I mean, I'm actually with both brands. I have accounts with CBA and I have accounts with Bankwest. So it is a bit more sophisticated than the CBA platform online.
Okay.
But what's also interesting is you've also got to think business accounts also for self-managed super funds fall under the brand of account fall under the category of bank business accounts for banks. Okay.
Right.
So you can imagine how many people who've got managed their own self-managed super funds, a lot of it's sitting there in cash and isn't doing a lot of those transactions.
Yeah. Yep.
It's also affecting those accounts as well.
And I guess if you've got a private account with the same bank, it's going to make that more complicated as well, just literally because you're effectively with two banks, or?
I actually think, and this is a bit of education here, I'm actually personally don't put everything in one bank, and the reason is to manage risk. So if one bank for whatever reason goes under, which is very unlikely in Australia, but let's say there's an issue, right, or a run on the bank, or their technology is down, which does happen from time to time, you've got other banks to draw on. Right?
Absolutely.
And the other thing is, if they ever freeze accounts, which banks can do, then you've got another bank that you can fall back on, other branches. So that's one of my risks.
We're not in Canada, man. Come on.
You'd be surprised.
I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah,
I'm totally
absolutely.
being sarcastic. I mean,
Especially, a lot of people don't know this. I think it's the fisheries. If they catch you fishing, like illegally, let's say you catch a fish that's a millimetre undersized or whatever, they can take your house, they can take your car, the boat that you're using. And then they can also, if they make the allegation that you're using undersized fish or you're breaking the fisheries laws to make money, they can actually organise to have all your bank's accounts and everything frozen.
wow.
Yeah, the level of authority that different
That's crazy.
departments in Australia have, like the fisheries departments, is really
I
insane.
think this is a big point right across, and I don't want to go way off subject because this is important stuff. But like, okay, the amount of power that unelected people have in this country. People talk about politicians all the time. At least, like, it's a minor thing, but at least they're elected by the people theoretically, right? But these unelected bureaucrats have got way too much power. That's
the
crazy.
thing is, that's not irrelevant, because let's say Commonwealth Bank turns around and says, no, we're not having Bank West accounts in WA or over East, whatever, and you bank with them. They're forcing, these bureaucrats, as you say, are forcing you to bank with certain people.
Of course they are.
And then if you've only got 4 options and 3 of those banks turn around and say, well, no, we're not dealing with you, you've got one option. If that bank then turns around and says, you know what, we're going to a credit score system instead of you just seeing banking, they've got total control of what you can and can't do with your money.
Makes sense.
So it's, as even though you're saying like it's not relevant, it actually is very, very relevant, because effectively what they're doing, they're taking businesses out of the market. Now Australia's got really strong anti-monopoly laws.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, at what point will these big 4 banks be considered having a monopoly over the market, and that the legislation for anti-monopoly laws will step in?
It's interesting because Westpac is also set to close 4 branches in regional WA.
Wow. Okay.
And so a lot of the regional people are saying, look, where are we going to bank? We have to drive 100K.
Yeah.
Some are saying, look, it's not worth me driving 100K because of the price of fuel right now. And it's going to cost me more to actually bank with you. Look, I've complained to my local banks about some of these decisions, and I've discussed that with them, closing different branches and all this sort of stuff. They really look at it. It's about profit making, and how many people, the ones that don't have as much traffic going through them, they just go, right, we're going to shut this down, which is unfortunate, because a lot of the banks that don't have as much traffic going through them, you actually get better customer service with, because they're not as stressed, they're more relaxed, and they're a lot friendlier to deal with.
Especially if you've got something that's a little bit not normal. Like, let's say you start a new business and you're in a weird situation where you got contracts coming in, but you haven't got the cash flow yet. A bank that's prepared to sit down and talk to you, listen to your situation and understand what's going on, versus a bank that's not. Like, I can use a prime example. So when we purchased our family home, like this is the one, so I can't be a part of the loan because the banks don't understand, and this is ANZ, don't understand how I earn my money.
Right.
So I'm not allowed to be on the loan.
Makes sense.
No, it doesn't to me. It's like
Nice for you.
Again, I'm being a bit.
It's good for me, because if I get sued, like, well, too bad, we don't lose our house. But to get the loan, we were very restricted on who we could actually use. So
the other day, literally, I needed to put some cash in the bank, right? And
good luck with that.
Wow.
Really?
What
Did you get the 101 questions about where the money came from?
No. It just simply couldn't get anywhere that was open. Yeah. Right? I ended up having to. I literally had to go to a post office, put it in someone else's account, and have them transfer it to me. That's how ridiculous it is. Yep. And and then they're trying to push everybody into electronic banking. So I went in there to actually. Okay, no worries. I can't get to a bank. I found this post office. Great. It's got a little thing in it. I thought, how good's this going to be? So I do the old phone thing. He goes, oh no, you can't do anything without a physical card. I said, well, it's in my phone. Like, that's that's the modern way of doing things. Oh no, you've got to have the physical card. So I literally had to effectively, fence it through someone else so I could get my own money. Absolutely crazy.
You know what's really stupid about that? So let's say you were doing a half decent sum of money. Let's say it was like $8,000.
Yep.
I picked a number below the $10,000 above the $5,000. So that $8,000, that will show up on their bank statements, and if they get audited by the ATO, they're going to have to answer where that money came from.
Yeah.
Because they'll probably count it because it's such a large sum of money.
Yep.
It's a source of income.
Crazy.
And so that person that helped you out will probably end up having to pay extra tax.
Yeah, well, I can tell you the good news is it wasn't, the bad news is it wasn't $8,000, so it was only a few hundred. But
you shouldn't have to be at that point.
It is absolutely silly. The fact that I had to drive, I would have had to have driven about 20 kilometres to get to a branch, right? It's insane.
Oh, 20 kilometres. Oh, where?
I know someone who one morning he he was walking around and come into a bit of money from the casino, and
I think I know who you're talking about.
he had a shopping bag, like plastic bags, and he rocks up first. He thought, he was in the Uber, and he thought, I better stop off and put this in the bank, I suppose. So he dropped off, and he rocks up at the line, and somebody's there, and how you going? And they're waiting outside, waiting for the bank to open. And he rocks up, and somebody, I want to deposit $100. The person before him said, okay, sure. I think it was something like that. And then he rocks up. He says, right, so what do you want to do? I want to deposit some money. And the teller says, how much should I deposit? 100,000.
And every single camera lights up like a Christmas tree. Yeah, exactly.
He was walking around with a shopping bag. I think it was one of the old plastics.
Oh, I said the Aldi bag. I was suddenly I've gone straight to Labor Party right there. Oh dear, it's very classy. I mean, 100 grand in my shopping bag. Yeah, it's a valuable bit of plastic.
So where did you get that money from, sir? I just left Labor. I mean, the casino.
Are you familiar with the term pork barrels?
At the casino. So, I would have loved to see the bankers the face.
It would have been absolutely magic.
See, this is how weird I am. I would have just followed him just to see that reaction. It would have been absolutely priceless. Like,
I'd be into that one like nobody's business.
I know another funny story. We've got time for funny stories.
Why not?
Because I was working for one company one time, and for whatever reason, they'd missed the cut-off time to pay all the employees.
Right,
the electronic. This is back when the technology was clunkier and you didn't have these OSCO payments and stuff like that.
Yep.
So they decided to write all these checks through all their staff in cash, right? All for the same bank. So on a lunch break, we all head downstairs to the bank, and I think I'm probably about the 9th or 10th person coming through, and there's this look of panic on the teller's face because it was one of these alternative banks. It wasn't one of the mainstream ones. She's going, "You can't all come down here. You can't all come down here and cash out." It was wonderful seeing a banker terrified about a cash flow issue. It was just really, really fun.
Did it make you feel like in like 1932?
It just was so much fun.
So you've actually experienced a bank run in real life.
There you go. You've lived it. Yeah.
Well, that's effectively what it was. All these people coming to get cash.
Thankfully, we weren't too large a company of 200 employees. It was a medium-sized company, about 20 of us. But we all wanted to get our money before the weekend.
Especially when you're young. Come on, Friday, you need that money. Okay? You've got some work to do over the weekend.
My boss used to do that when I first started as a roof tiler.
Really?
And they used to pay us by check and would have to go down to United Credit. But they were cool. They knew every Friday we got paid, and they knew every Friday would be calling in before they go to the bottle shop. So they were ready. Like, they spoke to the boss first, and he said, right, there's going to be this one's going to take this much money out, this one's going to take that much money. So they had it all ready behind the counter, and would just come in, they go, and what's your name? And so they had like little packages all ready. It seemed
it's so funny you say that. I think my first job, it was
the yellow paper envelopes.
Yeah, I know that. Little paper envelopes, exactly, with the cash inside, and you take it and rip it off the top. It was very exciting, all that cash. But and the little jingles, for the extra few cents in the bottom. Kind of think, oh my God, that's so long ago. So long ago.
No matter what happens, though,
that was my first job, by the way.
2021 will go down in banking history as the first time they allowed you to go in a bank with a mask on legally.
For God's sake. Yeah, exactly. Take your helmet off, take your this off, take whatever, no problem.
For shits and giggles, I actually did try to go on one with the balaclava. And they wouldn't let me. So it was an open eye one.
Yep.
And so I actually asked the question, what's the difference between this and that? And I pointed to someone with a normal mask on, and she's like, these are the rules. I don't know, but. And so, needless to say, no, I did not open up a bank account that day. So, and to her credit, she didn't call the cops on me.
That's right, Mr. Smith. Yes.
But the funny thing is, I rock up to a school without a mask on, yet the principal called the cops on me for not wearing a mask to a school, even though I'm a chronic asthmatic. And it's like,
welcome to, draconian crap.
But if you rock up to a school with a balaclava on, I bet you they'll call the cops on you anyway.
Yeah. Well, I've got a balaclava. I've got a racing one, nice Nomex one, so I can wear that. I literally, when all the mask thing was going on, I thought, geez, that might be a bit of fun. Going to my local IGA like this. Yeah, it's a good look. But no, I didn't do it because,
Why not? It was hilarious. Like, just seeing people look at you like, eyes wide, like you see all the way around their
Yes,
iris.
because I'm one of those terrible citizens who refuse point blank through the whole process to go through it. Wouldn't do it.
Well, you could have just been one of those citizens over in the UK that actually got knitted masks because they are so helpful at keeping the germs out.
There's no holes and microns and whatever, just, big gaps.
Yeah.
All right. Now, enough of big gaps. Right. I want to hear, okay, so basically we've got to talk about, I think it's important to talk about what this is going to mean to everybody as far as, Bankwest is a massive bank over here, right? And to be closing all those branches over there, I mean, how will it affect people in Western Australia?
I don't think it'll affect much over here. Because I think there's a funny rule in the contract with CBA with Bankwest originally that they couldn't shut it down in WA.
Okay.
What years happened ago? Do you remember Challenge Bank?
Yeah,
right.
I do.
That was bought out by Westpac.
Yep.
And of course, all the customers then became Westpac customers. How do I remember that? I was one of them. Yeah, I don't think they're allowed to rebrand it into CBA, and that's why they've held off all these years to merge it
How
all
many
into
years
one.
have they actually had it? I didn't even know.
Gosh.
I love how you say had us.
Had it.
Oh.
I think it's been well over a decade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Didn't even know.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't bank with them, so there you go. Yeah.
Yep.
But I think that was really good advice about before keeping your money in different banks. I think that's really smart advice. I like that. I mean, I know that Australia's a safer economy, but what economy is truly safe? So I think that's a really smart move.
It's just spreading your eggs for me. That's one of my risk management. So if this bank is shut down for whatever reason, and it could be even simple, a branch is shut in your local town, you can't get to it or whatever.
Yep.
If they exist in the local town anymore, but you've just got that diversity, and you can easily now with online apps and stuff just transfer money from one to the other and go, right, I'm near this one, I can go here.
Yeah.
And they're relatively fast. I generally give it 10 minutes or so, it will clear up in your bank account. So,
seconds. Yeah, seconds. Trust
I
me.
must admit, that's something I really need to do. It's just with the ease of buying property, we must admit we've got our houses and bank accounts all in the same one. But it is something that we're looking at doing.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Time for a break, boys. That's what I think. Yeah, I've got a drink over there that's, looking at me and it's calling me. It's calling my name. It is Edge Radio Australia. You are listening to The Greater Wealth. We were talking about before your banking and Bankwest closing all branches and stuff, but there's some really serious stuff going on. The old Federal Reserve.
They're really fighting inflation, and they're doing it in big hikes too. So they raised last week another 0.75 percentage point, which is 75 basis points, to get their interest rate fighting inflation, as they say. And I'm concerned it's a bit of a one-trick pony because I don't think that's the only reason you're going to get inflation down.
Yeah.
And it's really would be hurting those who already in the United States are being bitten by inflation, and now if they've got a mortgage or something like that, or even credit card debt, personal debt. Mm-hmm. It's going to hurt more. So there is a side of people who say, when back in the day I was paying, 15% interest and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
but what they're not
repayment.
Sorry?
Your mortgage repayments back in those days weren't 60% of your pay slip.
Exactly. Your your house values were a lot lower.
Yep.
And what it's also not considering is that back then increase to wages happened more often. As to these days, it doesn't happen as quickly. I don't think there's been an average increase in wages for a long time. So, it's an interesting one. I think they've got to deal with oil. If you want to get inflation down, America's got to produce oil, and this is just a Band-Aid fix. The Federal Reserve, they're not in charge of how much oil production is going on. They can really increase or lower interest rates, and they're a separate body from the government, which most people don't understand or realise.
Yeah, most people exactly that think it is literally part of the government. Yeah.
No, so that's and they're kind of strict in terms of political influence into that space as well. So I kind of feel for Americans at the moment, but I think there's good news on the horizon. I think this is going to break soon. They want to, what they're doing, so as they raise interest rates, they're hoping that inflation will come down. They want to get the inflation to round about 4.6% in 2023. That's where
still pretty high.
It is. The ideal place for inflation, economists usually go for 2 to 3%.
Yeah.
2 is the best, obviously.
So for the people who don't really understand why raising of interest rates will reduce inflation, do you mind giving them a quick summary on that?
Cool.
What they do is they affect behaviour, consumer behaviour, through raising or lowering interest rates. So if they want people to spend more money, they'll lower interest rates. That often happens in a recession or a crisis, which you saw when COVID-19 hit. The Reserve Bank of Australia lowered interest rates to do that. When they want people to spend less, they raise interest rates to help people save more and not just be as frivolous with this. This has a roll-on effect to the consumer market.
Absolutely.
Obviously, retail level industry is always affected by this. People start to cut things that, if money's tight, I always used to see it, and I know this because I've got family in this industry, but they cancel their aftercare children's
really?
after hours.
School care, didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
But gym memberships go a lot as well.
Gym memberships, your magazines,
things that are
Netflix
considered to be luxuries. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Albo stops going to see Thai massage places.
Oh, come on. Stop being ridiculous. They're essentials things. Okay, come on, really.
For him it is.
For him, exactly. Now, I'm going to ask the question on this. Okay, if this is happening in the US with, 3.75%.
Yep.
Yeah, is this a cough that's happening in the US that's going to cause Australia to have the flu?
Not indirectly, I think.
Yeah, okay.
The Reserve Bank of Australia has been raising interest rates as well. I think, as I've said before, they have to, because if another crisis is to occur and you're so low, where are you going to go from there? You don't want to go into negative territory like the Europe has, where you put $100 in the bank and you get 95 back at the end of the year. Which is a really interesting scenario, because then you've got very wealthy people go, where do we park our money?
Yeah.
Which is a whole different industry and conversation in itself. We go down in that rabbit warren. But yeah, I don't think inflation is going to be as bad. We're a very different economy in Australia because we're very mineral based and also agricultural based.
Okay.
United States is a very different kettle of fish. Very heavy tech sector in the United States as well, with the Silicon Valley, and we've seen that sector, that industry, move a lot. In COVID, it went up.
Yep.
Everybody in lockdown, buying things, electronics.
Oh, yeah,
your Netflix subscriptions and all that. People go back to work. That has really come down. What goes up comes down. And we've seen the NASDAQ. I think it's down at the time of this broadcast about 25% over the last month.
Didn't realise it was that
the
much.
NASDAQ has come down 25%.
Okay.
Yep.
So, yeah.
But these blips happen all the time. So
Exactly.
It'll come back up again.
And that's a really good point, Travis. And I think that's one of the attitudes in terms of banks closing down over East too. They go, I heard someone say yesterday, they always close banks down and then they open them up as a goodwill gesture to be seen as doing the right thing and for marketing and that sort of stuff. It really is about all banks wanting to cash in their profits.
Sure.
I feel for people who lose their jobs. The banks are saying they're going to be re-employing them in other areas across their brands and that sort of stuff. Yeah.
We talk about the levels going crazy on the interest rates. I'm old enough to remember my parents going through, and I think, if my memory serves correctly, I think that one stage their interest rates on our mortgage was 18.5%.
That's the figure I hear quoted a lot.
Yeah, absolutely insane. And I saw how our lifestyle changed a lot very quickly.
Beat that very easily.
You're so competitive.
Oh, of course I am. Yeah. No, because a lot of people don't realise there's some people out there who don't fit in the normal scope of things.
Oh,
There's
yeah,
quite a lot of
absolutely.
them. So,
Yeah, for sure.
My mum was one of them. Her mortgage on her interest rate on her house was 28%.
Wow.
Well, you got to remember, it was a very, very cheap house.
Yeah.
So, again, just got to my comment before, even though the mortgage rates were 28%, it was still only about 40% of the pay slip was going to the mortgage.
Yeah,
so
okay.
The house prices, I think it was a unit in Medina was like $70,000.
Mm-hmm.
So the changes in the house prices versus what they are now.
Sure.
Yeah, the interest rate was
But it's
so much
relative,
higher.
mate. I mean, you're talking about, okay, 75,000 for a unit. Okay, that might be, 25 years ago. So if you work on the principle that...
Probably close to 35, to be honest with you.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Effectively, money, doubles every 7 years, right, on that theory. So, that'd be, quite considerably more. That would probably be $250,000 unit now, and that's probably accurate.
Do you remember Paul Clitheroe?
Yeah, I do.
Right, so he was the speaker on finance back in the 80s or something.
Yeah.
I believe he used to say you should only have a third of your income paying down your mortgage.
Yeah.
So a third of it shouldn't be higher than a third. Well, that's more difficult these days, of course, with house prices as it is.
Not possible. I don't think it's
Especially if
possible.
you're in New South Wales, that's next to impossible. Like,
Yeah.
outer suburb houses starting like $1 million.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
you've got no hope in hell of buying a house unless you get your parents to chip in and use equity in their own home for you
That's
to be able
right.
to get yours. So
It's a sad time, and obviously things have got to change, and that's why what we're doing here, and we're talking about education here and looking at money differently. To create that freedom. Otherwise, you're going to get, if you don't think differently, you're going to be stuck in that rut.
So let's start thinking differently. It's a brilliant point what you bring up, Aaron. Do you want that 500, 600 square meters or whatever it is, what you've bought, even or it's a unit?
Yep.
Do you want that to be the thing that anchors you financially for the rest of your life? And I think this younger generation is really reconsidering that.
Yep.
They don't want that. They don't want that freedom. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out over the next few years.
Absolutely.
And I always come back to this. What is your life purpose? Because if you are tied to that debt, I always think that a big part of modern day slavery is debt. Right?
Absolutely.
And if you're there servicing that, you don't feel that you have the freedom to move on to another job that doesn't pay more. Okay, so even if that job will bring you more joy or satisfaction, fulfillment in life, you sacrifice that because of the pay.
It's an anchor hanging around your neck. Simple as that.
I get into a lot of arguments with this one. I don't think the property market's as bad as what people say it is, because how many people under the age of 25 go, I've had smash avo for breakfast and it cost me $25?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the ease at which people eat out these days, they go buy a coffee for $7. They don't cook themselves. They don't. The ability of this generation to actually save and cook at home and spend time at home versus, and everything's on subscription basis now.
Absolutely.
They've got the gym membership, they've got the Netflix, they've got the news subscriptions. Whatever happened to like going down the shop paying $1.50 for the newspaper? Now it's like $4 a subscription and gets emailed to you.
Sure.
So I think what's happening is there's been this massive paradigm shift within society where they want everything now versus subscriptions rather than saving for something. And I think that is what's causing young people not to be able to buy a house. And the other thing is, because they want everything now. So instead of going, right, your first home is going to be a little shit bucket like apartment, they're going straight to the $500,000 property and they're tied in, and there goes 70%.
Because you're worth it, right? And that's the thing, exactly
they're
right.
not paying their dues.
Well, yeah, exactly right. I'm being sarcastic again. The reality is, okay, you should start in that little cheap house, in the outer suburbs.
No, you should start as a renter.
Well, I'm talking about in the buying market, right? Yeah. Okay, you shouldn't go straight to, upper middle class, or even, I think most people are thinking their first home should be $500,000, right? That seems to be sort of what most
well, that's
people
the average property in WA. It's like 520.
Exactly, but as a first home, that is absolutely ludicrous.
But the other thing is, they're thinking, right, I'll finish school and I'll buy a home.
They want to have a house that's better than their parents owned.
Yeah.
And I think that they don't realise, hey, mum and dad sacrificed to get to that point.
And I think people should be asking if they want a house better than your mum. So I think you should ask your mum, what age were you when you actually got your first mortgage?
I look back at my life, and I remember where, going to my mates' houses, they'd throw the bike on the ground and run in, right? Okay, all of those houses were well, not all of them, but I can say the absolute bulk of them were 3-bedroom, 1 bathroom, right? Yep. There was no second toilet, right? It was like, if you want second toilet, go out the backyard, mate. Yeah, that was how it was. And I mean, we were all very, very happy back then that everyone didn't have to have multiple bathrooms and a theatre room and all that sort of carry on. And unfortunately, I'm sorry having to go at modern society, but the reality is, younger people have this, I want it now and I want it all, and they've got absolutely no desire to have that sacrifice to build something, which is really sad. So they are prepared to go and spend $7 on a coffee rather than knock one up at home. It costs 50 cents.
The interesting thing too is, look at scripture, which is really important here. It says, build your work in the field before you go build your own home. Right? And that's great, wise advice there.
It is.
So if you're going to build a business, build the business first before considering building your own house.
Yep.
Build the investment portfolio before you build your own house. That's supposed to feed into that purchase of the home, because this is the thing that gets me, right? This is the thing that was really highlighted to me in the financial industry, was that a lot of people, when they think of their own home, they think of it as an asset.
No, it's a liability.
It's a liability.
Yep.
And
Unless
you'll
you
hear the
use
real
it
estate
as
agents call it, the greatest asset you have. And I would correct them, go, no, it's the greatest liability you'll have, because you cannot make income off your own house. You cannot eat your own bricks and mortar.
That's
and
right.
what the financial planners consider is that if it's non-deductible debt, it is bad debt, right? It's not good debt. Whereas an investment property, the debt on that is tax deductible.
I'm seeing, friends, sorry, mate.
I've got to challenge you on this one. So there's a lot of people, especially with COVID coming out now, and we're one of them, where we actually now run a business from home.
Yep.
So now that a proportion of our mortgage at home, well, Luan's mortgage, we can actually now claim offset against the business.
Great.
You got to be careful with that.
Oh yeah, there's so much you got to be careful
Accountant,
with.
because
Get good advice.
Because there is a capital gains tax exemption in your personal residence. If you're claiming that earlier, you can run into some real problems. So you've got to get advice on that. But yes, I agree. I know another gentleman who pays very good rent, but runs his business from that premises and lives there as their own home. A smarter way to do it.
Yeah,
I was going to make that. I was going to make that example. Funny enough, I've got some friends who have, they've got great equity in their house, right? Done really well, worked really hard, done all the right things. So because they've got such good equity in it, they've literally moved out of their own house, renting their house out, while the payments are obviously covering that, and they've rented another house that they're living in. They run their business from there, and they are financially so much better off. It's absolutely massive difference.
I've got another friend who restores vehicles, so he intentionally purchased a block big enough that he's got a full workshop in the backyard and his residential house is in the front yard. So there are ways to turn your home into an asset, but like Derek said, you have to talk to an accountant first.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've got to you got to structure yourself properly right from the start. You can't be going, right, let's buy a house. Like, you know what? I want this as an asset. Let's turn it into an asset, and not doing it later is so much harder than doing it correctly the first time.
Okay.
So
where you make your money in a house too, if it's an established property and you can't actually add to it, is when you buy in, right?
Yep.
If you don't get the right price, you pay peak of the market, you are going to. How long are you going to wait?
Decades.
Because lately it's always, hey, the boom, the property goes up, buy as many as you can. After after the global financial crisis, property flight prices in Australia were just flat, and you had people in the industry going, this is a terrible market. It went for about, 8-9 years before any movement was happening.
But that's a fundamental business. Like people always think about when you're making money and you've got a business, and they think about what they're selling things for. Right? That's kind of not that. It's kind of irrelevant. It's what you're buying it for, right? That's the difference, and that's in a lot of ways the success of your business will what you're purchasing those assets for, and moving them on. Because generally, without getting boring, you're looking for a price point to sell it. So ultimately, if you don't buy properly, that's where the profit is. It's at that end. It's not at the sale end. It's not at the other end, the retail end. Yeah.
And the issue too that you've got to recognise with your own personal residence is you're never objective about it. Right?
True.
You're making it for personal decisions, personal reasons. You want to. It's got to be functional for your family, your children. If you have children, it's got to be functional for Is it its location? Is it near the schools? Is it near your community? So many people. That's a big draw card. Is where is your community network? People want to be located there generally. And that's why most people, when they sell a house, they'll move to another house in the same neighbourhood, which is really ironic because of that community tie. And that's not necessarily an investment decision, that's an emotional decision. So you've got to recognise your own personal residence, it is not always a smart financial decision. It has to also work on an emotional level. And you've got to enjoy the space you're in.
This is what I love about this show and your advice. Honestly, it's fantastic because, again, it's all about looking at things differently, and we all, certainly in Australia, we have this thing about, we've got to have back in the old days, the quarter acre block. Gee, that's been gone for a while. But, that whole little piece of Australia, and we think of it exactly that, our asset, we're buying this asset, No, you're not. You're buying 30 years of bloody debt.
Yep. And I think it's very much tied into our colonial history, right? Because if you were a prisoner coming out here, if you part of a sign of freedom is that you could then buy land.
That's a good point.
Right? So it's very much into the Australian psyche. And you notice these contracts, because I've done property syndications in the United States.
Yep.
They look at it very differently, property. It's more of a consumable item.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you put tenants in there, they're not necessarily thinking of, wow, this is going to grow and all this sort of stuff. They're going, what do I get out of this property?
Yep.
Totally different mindset. And so when you're dealing with different cultures, you've got to keep that in mind as well. How do these tenants are going to treat this?
Yeah.
And what game you want to play?
It's really interesting to say that because as a landlord, I can tell you now, a lot of people get stuck into the trap. Let's say they live in one suburb and then they finally get to the point where they're buying investment property. They'll buy it in the same area thinking, oh yeah, it's close by, it's easy to look after. But you've still got that emotional tie to it. You've got to totally sever yourself emotionally from that property because it's going to cause you all sorts of dramas. So, and our properties are over 4 hours away. So we have the luxury of being able to go, right, You're the real estate agent. It's your problem.
Yep.
Deal with it.
Yep.
Yeah, you've got to manage
separate
the
yourself.
agent then.
Yeah.
In that situation. I mean, it's fascinating because I never went and saw the properties that we bought in the United States. Never.
Really?
Never went and had a look at them.
You know, you're actually not allowed to do that in Australia. You have to actually physically see the
we sent one of our partners over
Yeah.
and we flew him over because it's so expensive to send someone over.
Yep.
So we flew him over. He did all the due diligence because he loves property and
Yeah.
you can stand. I get bored doing that stuff. I like the stock market more. But he went over and did all the due diligence and it was just very methodical. He described, okay, this one, I tripped on the step when I was leaving that place. Right, that's off the list. Why? I said, because I don't want somebody tripping, breaking their neck and having a lawsuit. Right?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so American.
This
No,
guy,
no, no.
Okay.
Yeah, Australia's sue more people than Americans per capita.
with the exception of California.
Possibly, but
Right.
California's a small part of Australia.
Wow.
So,
Well, no, it's got
Australia's
more
really
people
bad for it.
in Australia, but
We are really bad for
New South
Wow.
Wales is the second highest state of litigation in the world.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
There you
that's
go.
why insurance and asset protection is so crucial in places
Queensland's
like
number
America,
5.
Australia.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Wow.
So yeah,
anyway,
All right, we need a break. It's as simple as that. You are watching a fantastic show. I'm really enjoying this, guys. Thanks for really cool. All right, A Greater Wealth here on Edge Radio Australia. It's A Greater Wealth here on Edge Radio Australia. Travis Carter over there making faces at me. Jeez, I tell you what, he's a funny looking fella, really. He's a bit of a shaved monkey. To my left, far better looking fella, and quite frankly, a lot more bright as well. We've got Derek Whitaker. Mate, good to have you here. Sorry about what the cat dragged in, but speaking of what the cat has dragged in, okay, I'm looking over there at the computer and it looks like some people are being dragged down a bit. What's going on there?
it's interesting how many companies are losing money at the moment and
serious
expect
amounts.
more to come. Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook founder, if you hadn't known, or Meta,
Yep.
has lost $71 billion in 1 year.
Well, I know what that's based on. I have been banned that many times this year. He must be. I mean, my account alone.
I have to ask: can you sue a computer?
Oh,
Because remember, he's a Zoidberg.
is he really?
I don't know.
No, you don't.
I saw a video, with the court proceedings. So
Yep.
every time he moved his head, someone put in a computer like moving, like,
But he does sip water in a very interesting way, doesn't he?
and he also sits on a booster chair.
Can you tell we don't like him? Anyway, I'm pretty rapt to hear he's lost $71 billion. That's more than you'll find in the corners of this couch.
Well,
that's great.
to put it in
no idea what's going on
perspective, that's more than half his fortune.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
So that
okay.
is going to hurt. And if you also look, so he's now, I think he slipped down to the 20th most richest person in the world.
Tough break.
In
Wow.
terms of billionaires.
I have to ask: have they said how he's losing his money?
Well,
Like, is it gambling debts, sued by people, or
that's
like
a really good question. I think a lot of it's on his stock price. Facebook or Meta
Yep.
has lost over 50% of its value. So you can see the correlation there.
Absolutely.
Of where that's going in terms of the lawsuits. I think a lot of people have lost confidence in the platform in terms of its privacy. And there's a lot of investigation going into the involvement that they had in the last US election.
Oh,
in
look,
terms of the
what's come
algorithms.
out about, look, when he was in Joe Rogan recently and literally admitted to the fact that that the FBI had gone and contacted Meta and had effectively said, oh, there's going to be some misinformation coming your way. Better keep your eye out for that, which was obviously closing
Trump.
down and hiding. Well, no, it was hiding the Hunter Biden story and burying it. And basically anybody who did it, they were using the algorithms to minimise their reach, right? He literally,
Allegedly.
No, he admitted it.
Oh, did he
No,
admit
he
it?
admitted it on
Oh,
Joe
right.
Rogan. Yeah, absolutely, simple as that. So, I would
How
use the
stupid
allegedly.
would he be going on to Joe Rogan?
Oh,
I've
you know
heard a
what?
theory on that. I've heard a theory on that.
I think it's his ego.
No, I think I've heard a theory on that.
Okay, Well, I'm curious. Okay, maybe not something we can talk about. Fine. I mean, to me, it looks like his ego. I could be completely wrong on that, but I think that being on the biggest podcast in the world, it's as simple as that. I think that he's a very strange man. Let's not pretend he's.
I'm questioning whether he's actually human. But
Oh,
anyway.
look, yeah, and if you believe the stories, I mean, let's face it, it started. Facebook started because a girl broke up with
Look,
him.
I don't celebrate anybody losing money. In the sense of I like when people make money and do
Yep.
well and all that sort
Yep.
of stuff. It's a different issue if how that money is being used, and I think that's
Yep.
coming into question in terms of this space. What's interesting too, he's not the only one who's lost a lot of money. Bill and Melinda Gates have lost $27 billion. And,
Not upset about
and
that.
$26 billion respectively. And then Amazon founder Jeff Bezos has lost $46 billion.
That's insane amounts of money.
It's really interesting. And as I said earlier in the show, that tech sector has come down a lot. I mean, the NASDAQ has lost 25% in the last year, the last 12 months. So that plays into in terms of the share value on the market.
They have a massive credibility issue. It's as simple as that. So people are moving away from these platforms. I obviously have a sort of a large presence in Facebook land when I'm not being banned. And a big reach. And the reality is, like with all the bans and everybody so constantly is talking about the fact that they're frightened of sharing this, frightened of doing that. Even very simple things, a bit of satire, literally a funny meme or whatever. People are now frightened of that platform because they know that they get bans, 30 days, 90 days, this, that, whatever.
And they're not small bans either.
No, and that affects people's lives and businesses. This is not, you got to remember, a lot of these Facebook accounts are about people's businesses, right? So this is really affecting the money that, feeds their kids.
Well, they've just had a case come through in one of the states, the United States, that says that they're not allowed to be, social media platforms are not allowed to be a censorship.
Yeah,
so
because
that
in America,
changes the whole landscape. Because the moment Twitter banned the President of the United States, Donald Trump, from accessing his account, they moved from being one who was a facilitator of information to being a publisher of information.
Spot on. Yes.
And that changed the whole landscape. The funny thing about that was Trump was the best thing that was going for Twitter.
Exactly right.
Right? And they banned the one that was actually bringing in so much traffic through and publicity.
The thing that I find really fascinating, and I'm going to go back, I can't remember if it was 2017 Super Bowl or 2018 Super Bowl. So people have, for a very long time, been migrating across from actual physical sports into what's known as esports, so computer games. I'm going to use the League of Legends, which is a computer game, 5-on-5, you beat each other up and you have a winner out the end. So I really oversimplified that. So the Super Bowl had 128 million live viewers. The League of Legends World Series had over 130 million live viewers. So the amount of people that are now watching computer games instead of real sports is getting bigger, and it's totally switching. Like there's a huge paradigm shift. And for these tech companies, and this really goes into how shit they are, how lack of trust they have. With a massive boom in esports over the last 10 years, they're still losing money hand over fist.
You've got to also remember that Zuckerberg spent a lot of money acquiring Meta. In terms of that metaverse technology. Spent billions of dollars on that and has basically played the gamble of, this is the way the future is going to go in terms of Meta. And then doing the whole rebranding. I mean, rebranding is not cheap, especially at a big company like that. So keeping those things in perspective, he's gambling that, I think what I think they're finding is the users are not coming back to the platform like they did. And it's gone through different phases, and I think that's the issue, is he's had to go, right, we have to keep innovating, to keep improving, and their strategy's always been buy smaller companies out and use their technology to do so.
Well, that's why he owns Instagram, obviously, because he saw them as a threat, was hurting his business. So the easiest way is to give them an offer they can't refuse, right? Look, as I say, I think it all comes down to trust. Simple as that. I think that people are lacking trust, and there's other products out there. I know there's one called Truthbook, which is there. Obviously, you've got your what are the other ones? Telegram. There's just
it's interesting politically. You see Trump's move to Truth Social, which you can access in Australia yet, but that whole movement,
VPN, you can do it.
Sorry,
go start a VPN just so you're in America. It's not hard to get around.
Yeah, sure. But that whole move in terms of people being tired of being censored, that's where they're going to now.
Make no mistake, when I can access Truth Social, that's where I'm going. Right? Okay, and others as well. But let's cut the crap here. You've got all this censorship with anything that Meta's involved with. If you go now, censorship is way into TikTok. TikTok's got a lot of other problems. Let's face it. Part owned by the CCP. The reality is at this moment, it's very successful. Right now, if you want to get into the heads and the wallets of anyone under the age of 25, that's where you need to be. That's the marketplace, right? It's sad, but that's the reality. It is a very competitive world out there, and I'd be very surprised if obviously the Chinese thing is probably why he didn't try and buy TikTok. But with these other alternatives coming out, I'd say, look, as I say, I'll migrate over there. it's become, it's not a case of I just want to catch up with friends, whatever. It is an important part of for me to not socially, to.
It's a business plan now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a massive
marketing.
part of your business plan.
Yeah.
It's the same strategy that I use for the banks. If one goes down, I've got others to draw on.
Yep.
That's what you're doing with your social media.
Yep.
If one platform
Yep.
goes down or bans me, I've got these other ones to draw on.
Yep, that's exactly what we
And the
have
other
to
thing is, like, Zuckerberg's always gone for the monopoly of the market.
Yeah.
My understanding is America doesn't have anti-monopoly laws. So, and what's happening is because, like with any business, if if your customer loses trust in a business, they'll go elsewhere.
Of course it will.
And that is exactly what's happening now. So, and all these other smaller social media accounts are popping up because there's a demand in the market.
Yep.
Twitter, Facebook, TikTok to a certain extent aren't meeting those requirements.
Sure.
And so these other ones are picking up customers again.
And having said that, what I said about Twitter, you've also got to remember, don't forget, that Facebook, unlike Australia, would have banned all the news media
That's
outlets
right.
on the platform.
That's right.
Because of the negotiating of going, hey, you need to pay the journos that you've been profiting from for so many years. You're going to kill the local journalist industry here if you don't. I actually agreed with that move of the Australian government on that one. I thought you've got to protect your journalist industry. Otherwise, you're just going to hear big tech controlling that.
But the problem is they already do. I mean, that's the problem. In Australia, we don't have an equality in journalism, full stop anymore. It is absolutely, it's just narrative. It's just business. It's all about clicks. And there is no, in my honest opinion, journalism is absolutely dead in this country. But I do appreciate what you're saying, and I actually agree with you. I think it's not my natural, sort of preset idea to go for and believe in government intervention on these things, but it had to. That was an important thing. Yeah.
I think everybody woke up. I think all the politicians woke up when they saw if Trump can get censored on Twitter, what can they do to us?
Yep.
And I think that was a big wake up call.
Absolutely. All right, gents. It's time to call it. Yeah, I tell you, there's been so much to talk about today. Actually, to be honest, I've got more in me. I've got a lot of questions, so I'm just gonna have to wait till next Monday. Simple as that. Have we had fun?
Oh, always having fun.
Oh, look, thank you very much for being part of A Greater Wealth.
Oh, one last thing before we go. And for the people who tuned in on Thursday's live event, thank you very much for tuning in. It was awesome. And there was going to be a surprise on that coming up shortly. So we'll keep tuning
see,
for
you
that.
suck. I wanted to announce that.
Yeah, well, you were about to end the show, so I had to put it in. So.
Okay, look, cool stuff coming very, very soon. Very, very excited about that. I can't wait. I'm very happy about that. All right, have fun. We'll see you next Monday for The Greater Wealth. It's Edge Radio Australia.
See you all.